Okay, fabulous. Let's get started then. So most of you know who I am. I'm Hannah, co-founder and director of what was called Diverse Educators. We have rebranded in the last few weeks to Belonging Effect. Same premise in education, but we are doing more and more work outside of education. Our name was being a bit of a barrier to that. And also with everything going on in the world right now with DEIB, even the words are kind of a bit too political. So belonging is a way to invite people into the conversations. That's the kind of why we've rebranded. I'm delighted to be joined by two of the friends of our community, James and Sharon. We have supported them on their DIB journey over the last few years, and we were delighted when they won a national award. And I reached out to them to say, I get asked all the time from our network, what does good look like? And that's why I invited them to come and share best practice, warts and all, about what they've done, how it's landed, things to think about, and what their next steps are. So that's where tonight came from. If you've been to any of our events and training before, you know that we always frame our activity, our learning activity, around the three C's: consciousness, confidence, and competence. So thinking about yourselves today, what you're conscious of, what you want to become more conscious of, how you want to increase consciousness in others. You might be here because you do want to build your own confidence, agency, empowerment in leading this work or initiating this work. And then the competence around the specific skills that you want to be empowering in yourself, but also in others. So just to summarise for tonight, this to me is what I think we're going to be covering, and what the aims of you hopefully being here is to hear from others in the sector doing this work. Perhaps they're a little bit further ahead, but what they've done as a trust is they've prioritised it as a trust-wide approach. And that map-wide approach and that consistency and that alignment is really important for traction, and they're going to talk you through how they've done that. They are going to celebrate the highs, but they're also going to share some of the lows, some of the challenges, some of the obstacles. This work is never easy, and I think we have to have the humility and vulnerability to be able to share what doesn't work as well as what does work. And an opportunity to hear some best practice. And it's not just about sort of like them talking to you at the end. There's lots of opportunity to ask questions, to perhaps share some of the stuff you are doing, and how it's landing your end as well. So here's a lovely picture that they sent me on the left-hand side when they won the award. So the Optimist Math Excellence Award has been running for several years, and this was the first year where they introduced an EDI specific award. Full disclosure, I was one of the judges. I have to disclose the fact that I knew this trust. I knew quite a few of the trusts actually who were part of the mix. I was one of 4 judges, and we had to review, I think it was 9 trusts who put themselves forward last year. And it was really interesting comparing what each of the trusts had done. If I'm going to be candid, what some of the trusts thought they were doing as DEIB, which we didn't think was DEIB, was also really interesting. And that's that is James and Sharon at the Matt Excellence Awards with their team receiving that award. So again, that's the context why we're here. But you're not here to listen to me, you're here to listen to them. So I'm going to hand over to the Gallant duo for them to talk you through their journey. Feel free to put comments and questions in the chat as we go, or hold them to the end, and then we'll open it out. So James and Sharon, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for inviting us. Sharon and I have worked together now for 15 years, and we've got a bit of a repertoire where we bounce off each other. And what that means in reality is I talk over her and she nudges me and tells me to be quiet. So forgive us for our personal style. I'm going to let Sharon go first for once. Go on.
So we are the Inclusive Multi Academy Trust. We're based in Watford. We are 3 schools, 2 form-entry primaries, soon to be 4. We have got a hugely diverse student population and staff population, and we started our journey probably back in 2022, 2023. We've got 67% of our children are EAL or come from diverse communities, and we felt it was important that staff were talking about it. We wanted to make sure that our children felt that they belonged in our community. We don't call it a vision, we call it our beliefs and promises. That happy children learn, happy staff thrive, and happy people build a community.
And I think the name inclusive comes from, well, I don't think, the name inclusive comes from when we set our mat up. So Sharon and I both have worked at our founding school, Lawrence Haynes, which is there. I've been there 25 years, started as an ECT. I came from a school in St Albans, or a place in St Albans down the road. So if you know Hertfordshire, it's old absolutely white British, very affluent, privileged. And I came to that school in West Watford, and my world, genuinely, my understanding of what the world is started the day I joined that school. And I've been there for 25 years. You joined from the Northeast banking background.
I did, yes. And yes, I've been in the trust, was it at Lawrence and been in the trust for just over 15 years.
And the community demanded more of us. And that's been our journey all the way through. And whilst we started a purposeful DEIB journey 2022, that community demands to be what it is. We became a trust because we didn't fit the profile of Hertfordshire. If you know Hertfordshire, leafy green, white British. West Watford is not. Our school is on Vicarage Road. You would have known that if you're a football fan. So any school that's built by a football ground and a hospital on a train line is never really the plum bit of land in the community. And the community talked about itself in that way. They say they were from the bad side of the bridge. It's got the highest EDI rating in the county. Again, I caveat that within Hertfordshire. Highest gun crime, knife crime, drug crime, teenage obesity, teenage pregnancy. And that was our community. And our drive was to make sure that those people felt welcome and felt belonging in a community that they really didn't have a place for. Subsequently, we've got 62 languages across our trust. So our journey with DEIB started around race, but it has grown massively across the time there. Sorry, Hannah, can we just move on? Is that right? So, said some of this already. Our leadership team was predominantly white British. Our heads are all white British. The two central trust leaders are white British. And we were acutely aware that we were capping our children's ability or what they saw as a leadership position. You will already get a picture that there were lots of things that were pointing to us needing to do more, demanding that we do more. But the true catalyst came from our staff response to the murder of George Floyd. Staff came to one of our schools, Lawrence Haynes. I think it's worth saying that our three schools are less than 1.5 kilometres apart from each other, but they could be 500 miles apart from each other because the communities are different. They all serve Watford, but Watford itself is very different, and our diversities of race and culture are different within those as well. Whilst I'm saying George Floyd's murder was the catalyst, lots of things pointed to us needing to do more. And I think if we're honest, some of that is through fear. I think that, we talked a lot, and my own journey is about using your privilege and using your position, our position, to be able to be a force for positivity and change. But the staff felt that we shouldn't hide behind empty words, empty promises. We should show that we were actively anti-racist. We should show that we were against the atrocity that happened. And through that, a staff forum developed. Now, what shocked me is that all of the heads did not back that. They did not want to tackle that conversation. They weren't brave enough or confident enough to have the discussion in an open way. It therefore ended up being a really fantastic forum at one of our schools, but actually isolating that school further as the school that was thinking about this thing, and the other two weren't brave enough to do that. What ensued was a number of conversations. We got some individual training from Hannah. So we go into the 2020 on point 2. We were doing some work around brave spaces with some of the schools, some of the people. We actually, through those conversations, felt that some of our staff felt marginalised. Some of the staff felt that it was tokenistic, and some of the staff who had previously really stood up and been forceful voices for race and equality in our trust felt that the bandwagon was being jumped on in a duplicitous way, just to make it look good. So we really tackled that and listened, and I think that, the first bit of learning for me was listening. People expected me as the trust leader and former head of the school to lead this conversation, but actually I was the wrong person to lead it. My presence there was absolutely critical. My viewpoints were important, but me leading it was the wrong thing and wasn't something that we did. And actually, the leadership of that group has changed a number of times for different reasons as we've diversified in our thought of what DEIB really means to us. Organisation development, we did adopt Proud to Be Me. We weren't brave enough to go fully Pride. One of the schools talked about not feeling comfortable with that, talked about our Muslim population, talked about it not being right for them. So we then had to talk about what we do feel comfortable with while supporting within the parameters, and being proud to be ourselves, we felt was different to Pride, but a step in the right direction. We broadened that focus, but really we landed upon trust training. And Hannah, you and I caught up about this just previous. And actually, the trust training, if I think about it now, was brilliant. Hannah and one of your brilliant team came and did an inset for us for our whole trust. I think you, Hannah, and I know you, Hannah, came and did some training for our governors. But in reality, it was a little bit tokenistic. We were ticking a box. One of our head teachers then bravely said, Hannah, can you come and do the training I'm not brave enough to do? So she hid behind you a little bit, didn't she? And you sort of, you did the awkward thing for us. And we then got together and really realised that we weren't doing enough. And we ourselves, as individuals in this office, had a difference of opinion, difference of lived experiences.
Yeah, and we kind of, if we, it was at the same time as we were looking at a people strategy. We really wanted to be the best employer that we could be. We wanted to, have a real strong focus on people and people development. And I think the two went hand in hand. We knew that the staff surveys that we were kind of delivering showed us that lack of inclusion at leadership level. It also highlighted a few other bits and pieces about belonging. So we invested in leadership, and we all kind of joined the journey with the DEIB leaders program.
Some of us willingly, some of us less willingly.
Yeah.
Both of us were willing, but it was a push, and I did have to mandate it. So one of our heads, they did not feel comfortable. They are a staunch advocate of this very small community, and she will say, I've been born in Watford, I'm going to die in Watford, I need to teach Watford children to be brilliant because they're going to care for me in a care home. And you've heard her say that, Hannah. And so she didn't want to see that worldly view. She has had the biggest change, obviously, in our journey. So we then really thought about what we could do. We spoke to Hannah, and the Diverse Educators DEIB Leaders Programme came up. We took the decision to invest in that for all of us. And actually, the unforeseen offshoot of that was we stopped. You're all in trust, you're all in schools, you run at 100 miles an hour, you never celebrate the good, you're always picking at the bad. And what it forced us to do was have periodic training together. We then got together afterwards, we carved out the time to have time. It was too emotive to just move on. We couldn't move on. So the day afterwards, we'd have another half a day where we sat and talked and listened. For some of us, the listening was the challenge. For some of us, the talking was the challenge. And we really got to know what united us as people. So we found our belonging, and we put aside our diversities within that space. So that was really, really helpful. And I'm not sure that was necessarily the intention of the training from its inception, Hannah, but it's certainly for us the most valuable part of that. Now that has carried on, and we've continued to invest in our staff and our leadership, and we've also continued to suggest that we take that time afterwards. If you go across then to number 4, 2003, 2004, we realised that we'd invested in leadership. We were very proud that we had done it top down. And if I can give you one bit of advice, if you're the CEO or the head in the room, you have to be the face of it, but not the driver of it. And if you're the DEI lead and your head's not, they're giving it to you as a project, you have to get them involved. Drag them to it, get them in the conversation, because it will falter if you don't have them, sort of the engine behind you. The staff investment came next, and we felt that had to be bespoke because we'd already started taking it in different directions in our school. Some of where we felt comfortable, some of where we wanted to challenge ourselves, depending on what your personality is. So for us, the staff investment came in. We organised or curated, Hannah, you curated for us, or Diverse Educators, a brilliant programme, 6 sessions, all an hour and a half long, 1 per half term. And we said that everyone has to come to 2 of those. Now, over half of our staff chose to come to at least 5 of those. So 5 or 6 of those. And so we didn't force that. We said, this is part of your twilights, but the interest and the personal journey of that became what happened. Now, again, Hannah was really generous with that, and I kept on adding friends to this list. So by the end, I think I had about 15 different schools in it, and Hannah sort of said, yeah, can bring them on. And that was quite conscious, Hannah, wasn't it? You had to actually get the word out there, however. And for us, it was about our growing, and I'll talk about that at the end, but that meant to us, if you're going to join our trust, or you are interested in joining our trust, or being our friend, this is what we're about. This is our name. This is what we're going to be doing. And if, one school came for one and then they didn't come again, now they're not going to be joining our trust. We're not going to be working with them, in a closer way. We're still friends, but just didn't work. And actually, it was a really good try before you buy. I have to say, more schools, about 3 or 4 schools, I loved it and want to know more about us because of it. So definitely worth doing it for that sense. What it threw up is, how do we maintain this? Because we got in 2005 a lovely award, and it was a nice night and really grateful for the experience, but it's an award. It's a moment in time, and then we move on. How do we maintain this? We've got the recordings of those 6 sessions. We have got our new staff looking at those, but actually we're already saying that we need a more bespoke, we need a continue thing. So do we have a trusty EIB lead who actually uses some of that training but puts a modern spin on it? You know, things move forward. So we're at 2025 now. We're at a new term this week. Genuinely this week we've been discussing whether or not the United Kingdom March warranted a prevent referral. We've got a difference in opinion across our trust leadership. Again, we have got a raise the flag working party, and that means all flags. We're talking about what identity and flags and country and nationalism mean to us and what that difference is. So we again are throwing that out there and moving forward with that. I don't know if anyone has any questions or points to raise today.
When we look back at the catalyst, the George Floyd catalyst to the conversation that we're having at the moment, you know, there's a huge difference in those people who feel safe to have that conversation. People think through an opinion, people are not frightened to chat about it. So the culture shift between that period in 2020 to what we saw last week is massive across our organisation.
People are okay to say their opinion and know they can be safe in that opinion. And that is a massive cultural change, which has taken a long, long time. And a lot of us getting it wrong and offending and upsetting and being indignant and being upset about things. We've had to learn to listen. And that's a really hard thing to do when you're a group of professionals who all think we're working hard for the good of the children.
I suppose as well, it started, you know, with a significant amount of the conversation around race, but now we talk about every characteristic, and our plans, our trust plans, our trust development, you know, considers, you know, and we talk about other things just as much as race.
And it has really permeated our trust board and our governance as well. We were lucky enough to be involved in the Daily Mail No Outsiders article, which we'd done a piece of work, and we're really proud of that piece of work, and we were on the video and all that sort of stuff. And not once did our trust board balk at all at having to remove it or being ashamed or having to have a plan. They just said, well, so what? This is our school. People don't like it. They have to come in. And that is a massive sea change from where some schools are and how some schools reacted to that. Absolutely, we were proud to associate ourselves with that. Now, legislation changes and we have to change and all that sort of stuff, but we're still in essence what we know we are together. Can we just skip on, Hannah, if that takes us? So part of the training, and I'm assuming some of you are involved in the training, have done the training or will be involved in the training. We shaped up our DEIB mission, and this was "You see me, you hear me, I belong," and it became a song. This was from the words of Professor Paul Miller. This was a piece of work, and he came and he heard our children sing this song, and it was all lovely. But what it meant for us was that true belonging means that you see me, you see my identity, my culture, my challenges, and they're visible and valued. You hear my voice. It matters. My experiences count. My truth is important to you, but it's important that I get to see it's important to me. And I belong. I'm not just included. I'm an essential part of our community. People ask us about race and racism, and, you know, there genuinely isn't. We do not suffer from racist incidents in our trust. We have lots of incidents, we have lots of bullying, we have lots of unkindness, but it's not racially motivated. And I genuinely attribute that to our conversations completely and utterly around us being ourselves and being us. One of the challenges within that training, Hannah, you set us, was about having a new diversity statement. And actually, I haven't looked at this properly since we did that towards the end, but it still holds true to us. We strive for...
Just interrupt them and say it's on a huge poster next door in the office wall.
I haven't looked at it in that sense. You see, things become wallpaper. We strive for equity and equality through encouraging and respecting diversity, challenging discrimination, and holding courageous conversations. That statement, and if you've done the training, you'll know that took us hours and hours of discussion. But the holding courageous conversations is what we hold closest there. One of our ex-colleagues calls this legacy work. And, you know, it's interesting you talk about Hannah to introduce us as being a bit further down the journey. You ask any of us, and I know you'll say the same, we feel like we were right at day one of our journey still. We've just started to open our eyes to it. So it's a forever journey, isn't it? We jump on there. So you can talk about that.
So it led us to think about our trust promises. We established these in 2016 when we set up, and what we added the parts in red that we felt were missing, that we felt needed to be included. So we talked about belonging, dignity, and equity. We added in about digital skills, and we also added in about the global community. You know, we continue to look at those promises on a you know, ongoing basis. But
if you look at, I say these are slightly healthier red editions than the ones we saw earlier, aren't they? But if you look at the terms belonging, dignity, equity, and digital, when you now look at, so if you could skip on, Hannah. When you look at this, so this is our current trust 3-year plan. You've got the words dignity in there. You've got culture. You've got equity. Digital is a driver, but digital is a driver under digital dignity. And for us, yes, we've got to get the infrastructure and most certainly cybersecurity right. But the education around this is that digital is the level playing field that gives dignity. You know, if you're talking about a Chromebook in a classroom that's got live translation, I was at Google the other day and they're showing live bots and signing live as it's happening. Our digital platform is the real jump into inclusion. So we're looking at inclusion and people very much under the lens of DEIB, but digital is our driver and our platform in there. And from that, we feel growth will come. You'll see again, those end ones seem to be our outcomes, belonging. You know, absolutely, Hannah, is you know, that's what we love. The love the rebrand and the name, because belonging is exactly where we came as well. So lots of that language that you saw in those 2 or 3 previous slides where we were working through what we wanted to be have ended up being our North Stars or whatever you know, our pillars, whatever you want to call them. So, you know, it's a quick overnight success, isn't it? You know, these awards, but actually what it's left us with is really clear ideas of who we are and what we want our children and our parents and our staff to be. Underpinning it all is happiness. And we got into a conversation with our trustees, didn't we? Because I got challenged. I was at a CEO thing and I got challenged whether happiness is soft, whether it's measurable. But our argument is that everyone knows when they feel happy. You certainly know when you feel unhappy. And do you want to be in a place that is unhappy? And for me, if I was asked to define it, happiness is around having the confidence to stand next to somebody that looks different to you, but stand and talk to them in a way that is equitable. So we've started defining what happiness means to us as well. So if we move on again. So it was lovely seeing this again, Hannah. So, because I thought it feels like it was just last term, but it was a year and a term ago, wasn't it? So one of the challenges we got was to present what we learnt, and all the heads bravely nominated me to tell everyone in the group what we learned. So forgive the names because we just lifted this slide directly. So Sharon, you increased your bravery, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was very scary. I was brought up in a pit village in the northeast that was all white British working class. And, you know, and for me, I always felt that there was a lack of knowledge. I was frightened of saying the wrong thing. But yeah, with that safety that we learned to work in, and and the knowledge that I gained as well from that 12-month period was, gave us the courage and conviction to chat through and have that safe space to have a conversation.
And the reality of that, there's loads of mini examples, but the reality of that came at Christmas last year, didn't it? When we were doing the office.
Yes, we've got just a small office team in the trust. We're just a small trust, but one of the ladies is Jewish faith and doesn't celebrate Christmas, and we recognised that. We celebrated the Jewish festival just before the Christmas holidays, and but equally she loved putting the Christmas tree up with us because she doesn't get a chance to do that at home.
And she really commented on just being seen again, and that you see me, you hear me, I belong. He was asked a question that we would have just felt awkward or just felt not brave enough to ask, and it came across naturally, and the difference that made about our trust belonging is massive. Gillian is head of one of our schools. Gillian recognised bias. She recognised her own bias. She recognised bias in others. And she developed those skills to identify and mitigate unconscious bias. And that was a really, Hannah, you saw her journey, didn't you, across that? And she openly wrestled with that. And all credit to Hannah and the team who gave us space to be vulnerable in that space. I don't know if you want to say anything there, Hannah, but it was a journey, wasn't it? There, Jo, who was leading our Lawrence Haynes school, so our most openly forward-thinking school with this, she embraced the importance of self-reflection and challenging those assumptions because she was almost too. We have to do something. We have to do something. And sometimes you don't have to do something. You just have to have a space where things can happen. You don't have to lead it all the time. Cheska is we basically got Goldilocks. We've got three different bears. They can't ever agree anything at any one time. So Cheska sits in the middle of the two. And she learned techniques to create a more transparent work environment. She was the one that hid behind Hannah a bit and the team and come and do my training for me. She's leading training on that now. She is openly driving that. And then, I was the white British man from affluence in a heterosexual relationships. There wasn't much in the privilege wheel that I wasn't ticking right front and centre. And there was an embarrassment around that. And you sort of think, should I be here? And I remember one of my first meetings with Hannah, I said, oh, what you need is another white British man joining this group. And you said to me, it's exactly what we need. I've got diversity, left, right and centre were talking to me. I haven't got you, or not me specifically, but what I represent. So I really had to learn to lean in and embrace without being flippant, without being silly, to embrace that position of influence that I've got as an ally. And that's something that's still a learning curve. And ultimately, it gave us belonging. We've given ourselves time to foster and celebrate relationships, develop belonging as a group of individuals, as individual schools and a trust. And it brought our trust together. It genuinely did. It showed us our differences and it showed a family. And we treat each other in the way that siblings treat each other. And we celebrate our ups and we really get the mickey when it goes wrong as well. So, that's been a really positive thing for our trust.
Yeah.
We could go on again, Hannah. So again, this was from that session. Where we're going to strength, future commitments, our trust position. New schools joining our trust are under no illusions. They are joining an inclusive trust who value this, will challenge this, and expect contributions about this. And that's the biggest. There is no passenger. If you join our trust, you are coming in and you're challenging us as well. Strategically, the inclusion sits. It is a trust priority. You've seen that. You can't get away from it. You're not going to hide from it, and that's not for everyone. That open dialogue, foster protected time for ongoing DEI conversations across all levels. This takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and we are in a time-poor teaching world, education world. You have to give it the time it needs. Can't be a snatch conversation at the end of a day when someone's upset. It can't be reactionary. Sometimes it has to be reactionary because the news and the world throws up a lot of things we have to react to at the moment. But we have to plan for this. Training and development. I don't know if you want to...
Yep, we just, we will continue to invest in those things, that professional development that we feel is really, really important to us. And if it's on our trust priority, we'll be given the focus that it needs. We will continue to develop those new members of staff in the team, through those four strands that we have. We will continue to champion EDI and, and strive to bring that equality and dignity across our organisation, because our people and our pupils are, our community needs it. They deserve it.
We go on, Hannah. So, we're talking about what led to this award and what does good look like. For us, the practical approach is dignity from day one. When you've got 62 languages, there's only one word that they need to know, and that's toilet. Everything else comes, and if you've got a primary school, that's the word. So we teach them that word, toilet. The power of names, and it comes across as a funny story, but it really does drive what we do. We had a little boy, I was a teacher, and he came in year 5. He came from Uganda, and it was called Mosin Dad. And that last day of year 6, I was his year 6 teacher. He said to me, "Why do you call me Mosin Dad?" I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "No, it's not. My name's Mosin." I said, "No, your name's Mosin Dad." He said, "No, my name is Mosin. I know my name." And we looked on the form, and Mosin's dad, who doesn't speak English and was given a form, had written Mosin Dad. So we'd misnamed this child. Now, how many times do you say a child's name in a day? 20 times, 30 times, times 2 years. What a lack of dignity we'd given that boy. We'd taken his identity away from him. So we vowed that would never happen. There's little things we do to avoid that now. We're leaning into digital. AI helps us with this. But you've got to be careful to get those things right. So that was a real sort of touch point for us. Language matches, you will be doing lots of this, but just giving you examples of what we used in our submission here. We've got to match those language, but not just using the children or Big Brother. You've all done those parents' evening where you get the older sibling or you get the child themselves to translate and you think, I know that you're not telling your mum and dad the truth here because I'm saying that you've not behaved very well and your mum's smiling at me. So it's getting proper language matches. Across our trust, we have got adult language matches for nearly 80% of our spoken languages and dialects. So that's, again, just working in. It brings us together as a trust. We need each other, but we actually make sure that there's dignity there. First language assessments, lots of you will do these again, but we make sure that our child, we try and work out what their levels are of SEND, of academic, of social in their own language. And we also, on that, get them to write phonetically how to say their name, to go back to that point of Mosin's story. We want to know. Now, we've reviled that again. We've got a nice little some of you will use Motes, which is a language recorder. Some people use for marking, but we get the child to say that and that gets stuck to the register. So when a supply teacher or a HLTA comes in, they can hear how that child's name is said and we get dignity from day one. So we're leaning into those things. Community engagement. So schools as community hubs. Schools are terrifying to come into. Even as a teacher, when I had to go into my children's school and I get called to the head office, you have that sort of fear, don't you? So if you haven't been to school in this country and you're called in to the school, it's a really scary place. So we try and break down those barriers. We have any reason to get those parents into the school because I don't want to hear those parents don't care. I know those parents care, but they just can't show how they care because the system doesn't allow them sometimes. So we have cake decoration sessions. We've got this little group of Ghanaian mums that come and do hair braiding. One of them I've known for 20 years. She's had 7 children through our school. She's never learned a word of English. She's never going to, and I can't speak her language. But she comes in and she braids like a demon every couple of weeks at our school. And there is belonging there because her children come and see her in a position in our school where she is valued and she is seen. We have a lovely ESOL set of classes. We do intergenerational maths and English. A lot of those parents go on to end up working in our schools, so they learn English with us. They then get a job, be it one-to-one, means they're supervisor, sports leader, and some of those parents, one of those parents between who had no English has gone on to be an HLTA in our school. So, and they are part of our community. Beyond that, they do things like CV writing, help with housing applications, all of those sorts of things. And again, our parents end up becoming volunteers to help one another with that. Cultural celebrations, the joy of working across schools is food, right? You get fed, as a head teacher of a primary school, you get fed within an inch of your life at every celebration going. We've got a big Portuguese community who we could not engage with at all. And we ended up employing a Portuguese teacher and they said, look, just do the meetings at 8 o'clock. That whole community are working. They're gardeners and they're cleaners. That is, and genuinely, I'm not stereotypical. Every single one of them had those 2 jobs. Heard the meeting at 8, they came, they said they would like to celebrate a Saints Day. Could they use the school? No problem. There was 50 of them had a Saints Day. 3 years later, we've got 1,500, this was 3 years after that, 1,500 people in the Portuguese community. The Portuguese government send over a teacher and pay for it to teach our parents English and our children Portuguese. It's about listening, it's about leaning in, it's about opening up your school, which is closed 60% of the time anyway, to our community. And then really focusing on those similarities, celebrating the differences while finding the common ground is the similarity. We stopped doing Christmas fairs. We stopped having beetle drives that nobody knows what they are. We started having a lot of food celebrations. And they all went brilliantly, apart from 2 years ago when Russia and Ukraine were put next to each other on the food stall, and that didn't go so well. But we've learned from that. We learned from that as well. And then that leads to those brave spaces. So, that is a genuine whistle-stop tour of sort of what the sorts of things we were exemplifying in our application. But these things all came from the community, but with a bid to try and bring the community into our school so the children could feel part of something and didn't feel annexed outside of that of our school. Next slide. So
I think what we work with the youth and do regular surveys with our staff, with our parents and our pupils, so we can analyse the data, we can see what we need to do next. The equality survey that we did last year came back with 92% of our staff feel that we are inclusive. We can benchmark it against national data. Our staff turnover came down significantly. I've just looked at the data again for that today at the end of last year, and we 40% turnover 3 years ago is now down to 19%. And the amount of applications that we are getting from staff wanting to join us is increasing significantly as well. Our retention's working. We've got staff that stayed with us for a long time. 92% of parents feel respected. You know, what's lovely is we get people coming back to say they want to work for us, which is really lovely.
Not when you taught them. I've taught all 6 of those as children who are now teachers for us. It just makes you feel really, really old and ancient.
You know, we know what we've got. You know, we know what we continue to need to work on. You know, we still know that work, despite doing a lot of work, workload is still an issue. You know, we're able to think about that, to identify what we need to do next, and then just be able to show staff and the community. You said, we did. You know, this is what we've done about it. You know, we're proud of the outcomes that we've got.
It takes a huge amount of time, but it doesn't come at a cost. Our attendance is above outperforming national averages. Our academic achievement is at or above national. You know, yes, we're not an outstanding new data under Ofsted thing, but we balance feeling part of a community, the social elements that are needed to teach, and they leave us being able to read and write. And that's important. That's part of belonging to a wider society as well.
You know, the majority of our children join nursery and can't speak English. I think this year at one of the schools, you know, there was 4 children that spoke English when they came in nursery. You know, so it's, you know, they've got really low starting points.
I think the other, you know, we know we're in a national falling roll. You know, across Watford, the rolls are falling by 6 to 10%. All 3 of our schools are full, and they were not historically schools of choice. So people are choosing our school for what we are, and it's beyond academic and it's beyond those things. So, you know, that for us is our biggest metric, that our schools are full and people want to be part of us and want to work with us, and they want to stay with us.
I think one of the things we haven't talked about, we work with national nurturing schools as well. We're the first trust to be accredited and then re-accredited for nurturing schools. And that looks at, you know, inclusion, it looks at pupil and staff well-being, and how we, you know, that holistic approach that we take to everything that we do. You know, there's lots of that nurture, those nurture principles underlie everything as well.
Thank you, Anna. So it's not easy. None of it's easy, as we said. COVID didn't help. You know, just like lots, we've all got our COVID stories, but what COVID did do is remind us, because you've got to go back into those people's houses, you've got to drop off food packages, you've got to do these things, and it was quite humbling to remind us how important school was to our community. And it really, really was, you know, it was an initial obstacle, but we responded there. Staff reluctance. We've lost staff. You know, being really honest with you, we have lost some staff who absolutely, fundamentally do not believe in what we're saying. We have lost staff where they have challenged, what about the white British kids? Yeah, they're included as well. You know, I won't teach any of this trans nonsense. You know, we've lost staff who have had these conversations with us, but we've had to put our principles before our recruitment there. There is a massive hidden workload. You know, addressing that burden on the Black and Asian staff, and not, you know, not being seen as equals or getting an equal crack at the whip. We went through a round of appointments recently for assistant headship where we appointed 2 white British people. We did it on the best on the day, and we've had some really challenging conversations about should we not be looking for a standard and then positively promote. So we've talked to 2 of our South Asian staff members, and we've made that commitment to them that we are going to, you know, we are backing them and we are going to give them that platform. Now that's come with some shame, come with some embarrassment, come with some have we done enough, but we've had the courage to talk about that and give opportunity. And that will lead to, within the next 5 or 6 years, our first Black or Asian head in our trust. And that's, you know, that's still having the conversation that you have to be at a standard, you have to be good, but we understand the doors that have already been shut in your face, and we have to open those for you. If you haven't read it, Race Cars is the best book ever to exemplify that. It's a really simple book, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's a children's book. Leadership demographics I've talked about there as well. And then I think we've already talked about those things and how we've responded. The difference between leadership, we've got to recognise that we are the engine room as the trust leaders, but we have to step away and let the people lead and let everyone lead. And that's really tricky when you're used to leading a school from the front. Hannah, okay. So we are now, interestingly, an hour ago, we were the breaking news on the Watford Observer. If you see that little screen grab down there. Now, what a slow news day it is in Watford to have the fact that we're changing the school name. Brilliantly, Watford Observer doesn't know what the school name is yet. They've just published it early. So they're really building some excitement around our school name. I can tell you it's Willow Tree, so you've got scoops there. So we've gone from Hollywell to Willow Tree. They are joining us. And my advice there, some of you will be trusts that are much bigger than ours, but choosing your partner wisely. Willow Tree came to every one of our sessions, Hannah, and they joined in and increasingly joined in. It started off with just the head, and then by the end of it, it became most of the staff. They really knew what our aligned values are because of the training we were putting out there and what we were leaning into with Hannah. They were very much introduced to our culture. They tried before they bought. And then just be clear on that ongoing commitment to DIB. How much time we are expecting you to give to this, and it is all pervading. It is all permeating. How much training you're expected to do. We expect you to be abreast of what's happening. You can't just ignore what's happening in the news. We expect you to have those conversations with your children. We expect there to be some punchy, not punchy, but some powerful conversations in the staff room without judgment, but with genuine challenge from either side. Commitment is obvious. The recruitment that we are now, having those brave conversations about, we are going to actively promote some of our marginalised staff, not just racially, but with the other protected characteristics as well. So we are more representative of our community. And our data shows that as well. About 3 years ago, I think we were talking to you about it, Hannah, our Adurio survey that said that we had 4 gay members of staff. By the end of the year, we had none. So I'd either done something to drive out all of our gay members of staff, or people didn't feel comfortable reporting that in an anonymised. So that was a really hard one because it wasn't, none of those staff members were openly and gay. And so, how do we address that? We address that by talking about it in a safe space now, openly and directly. And the last bit is agility. The world is a very exciting place at the moment, and we have got to help those young people and those staff be able to navigate it. And that's confusing. And sometimes, we can feel as well. So, growing as a trust, we've got to factor those things in as well. So if you're joining us, that's what you're going to have to get to.
Thank you both for sharing your journey, and thank you for navigating the interruptions as you shared your journey. I'm conscious that we've got a little bit of a time lag with tonight's webinar, but it's an opportunity now for you to ask some questions. I'm actually going to stop recording this bit so we can talk freely.